The top cop who put his badge on the line for justice.
The gripping story of Deputy Sheriff Doug Poppa. He was a top cop who did the right thing and paid dearly for it.
You know the name Doug Poppa? Yes, I do. God bless Doug Poppa, an honest cop.
He was a man of integrity. His testimony last summer freed an innocent man from jail who had already been convicted of shooting his ex-wife. But Poppa's going public cost him his job as an undercover cop.
I was elated, of course. But then as he testified, I was somewhat concerned for him because I knew that they were probably going to crucify that man.
Doug Poppa was targeted for a 10-day suspension by his own department for defying superiors and talking to the media. This Brooklyn-born street fighter wouldn't back down.
Sometimes the truth has a price. That may be the lesson of a Virginia police officer who says, in trying to do the right thing, he ended up paying for it.
The message you're sending is, see, we did it, Doug. You don't come out, you don't buck the system. No matter what the reason is, you just can basically keep your mouth shut. But if I wouldn't do it all over again, I would take the badge and I would leave it on somebody's desk and get out of police work. Because the day I can't tell the truth because somebody's pressuring me, and the day the system doesn't want me to tell the truth because somebody's pressuring me, is the day I leave the badge on the desk and walk away.
Poppa was fired for insubordination. One man who confronted truth and consequences.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Truth, not the Truth of Consequences podcast anymore. I changed the name. It's now called the Doug Poppa Podcast. This is episode 138 for Thursday, March 30th, 2023. This is the first time I'm having a guest on the show. And the gentleman on the show, his name is Alex Falconi. We'll see him here in a couple seconds. Alex is the administrator of Our Nevada Judges. We'll have Alex explain a little bit more, but I've been calling it a watchdog group. This gentleman here goes to various courtrooms in the state of Nevada, and he records different criminal trials, and I believe some civil trials too. He'll talk about it. And he broadcasts his information. He has a YouTube channel called Our Nevada Judges. You can go on there and you can see all the court cases that are on there. And he does more than just video. He does pop-ups. He puts legal terms on the screen. He puts the names of the prosecutors and the attorneys who are talking, and he describes the different legal terms on pop-ups while the video is recording. And let's get Alex over here. You there, Alex?
I'm sure here.
Okay, let's get it up screen there. Okay. Okay. Welcome to the show, Alex. I know you had me on your show a couple of years ago. And ladies and gentlemen, the first time I even heard of Our Nevada Judges, I believe it was in 2019 when I attended the hearing for then Las Vegas Justice Court Judge Melanie Andres Tobiasen, and Alex's wife, Brittany, was in the courtroom for 2 days, videotaping the hearings and then broadcast them later on for YouTube. So, Alex, I call it a watchdog group, but explain to the listeners how you got started in this, why you got started, and what actually I call it a watchdog group, but maybe you call it another term.
A lot of people call it that, and I think that's because those are the videos that get shared the most. But it's definitely not our primary objective. Our primary objective is to educate and inform the public. And initially, it was just simply a website with error rates. And what I mean by that is statistical data on how often our judges were overturned on appeal. That's how it started out in 2014. It didn't actually get to electronic coverage of courtroom proceedings until 2019. And as I mentioned, we look for cases where we can educate and inform the public, which primarily I focus on showing the public or introducing the public to different judges, different districts, different types of courtrooms, different types of cases. But in the process of doing this, we have stumbled into situations that are alarming that end up, we had one recently with an attorney who claimed to represent somebody he didn't, and then he got disbarred. There's other cases like this that, people are getting in trouble, specifically attorneys and or judges. For example, you mentioned the Judge Andres Tobiasen disciplinary proceedings. And those are the cases that really I think a lot of people talk about and a lot of people share. So I understand why we're seen as a watchdog organization, but it's definitely sort of a side effect of what we do. It's just a coincidence that some of the cases that we cover involve that type of material.
How'd you get this thing started? What made you start this?
So when I was representing myself back in 2008 in family court, I was in college and I was representing myself because I had no other choice. A lot of people, I think I've heard a lot of people say that he who represents himself has a fool for a client. And one of the things I like to say is that implies a choice. There are a lot of people in the family court system who do not have a choice. They don't have path A, spend money on an attorney, path B, represent yourself. They just have represent yourself. That's it. There's no other, that's the only choice. I guess you could just walk away from your child, but not many people do that. And I wasn't one of the ones to do that. So in representing myself, my family court judges started to make a bunch of mistakes. They started to win appeals. And after winning a total of 4 appeals, representing myself, and then also being published on a 5th, what they call a writ petition, I decided that I think what the state needs is a website that keeps track of how often judges make mistakes, because I went and looked for one and I couldn't find one. And that's all it was in the beginning. It was just simply me trying to solve a problem where I thought it would be nice if people could, look this type of information up. Because in my opinion at the time, it didn't seem to me that the judges cared that they were making mistakes. It just kind of seemed like an extension of the litigation process. So I thought, as a software engineer, that was a problem to me. I thought they should care about how often they make mistakes. And so I decided to put together the website that tracked all that information. And that's all it was for 5 years. It wasn't until 2019. Well, actually, I guess I could talk a little bit about what led me to do that. So in 2017, while the website was tracking data, one of these cases popped up. It was called Solid v. 8th Judicial District Court. And I read the case, put it into my system like I did with all the other cases. And I thought to myself, that's interesting. It talks about putting cameras in the courtroom. I've never thought about doing this before. And I kind of just stored that in the back of my mind. And then 2019 rolls around and there's a case on social media that has a lot of public engagement, activity, comments, stuff like that. And I thought to myself, I might try and actually put a camera in this case and see what happens. And I filed a media request and it was granted. And that was the beginning of what our Nevada Judges is now, which is primarily we're seen as an organization that puts cameras in the courtroom and records. And honestly, I think at this point, that is primarily the approach that we take with engaging with the public and educating, because it seems that that is mostly what the general public wants to do, is watch these cases for themselves. So we still do the statistics, we still do the articles and stuff, but primarily it seems that the public is most interested in those videos.
Now, I said at the opening that you have, of course, you have your YouTube channel where your videos are. And do you have a web page also?
Yes, actually, the website came first. The YouTube didn't come until 2019. So the website was published in 2014 and is still there today.
When this thing started, how did you get the, what did the judges have to say with this? You said you had to get permission to do the recording. And so the first 2 questions I have is, how did the judges respond to this? And then also, how did other media in Nevada, who also sometimes go to courtrooms and does the video, how do you get along with them? And do you have any problems with either one of them?
Yeah, sometimes. So the media, for the most part, ignored me in the beginning. They didn't start to interact with me until later. I try to avoid recording proceedings that already involve the media, specifically mainstream media cameras. Usually it's not a big deal, but sometimes it is, especially in Reno. Not all media are friendly towards the Our Nevada Judges mission. Because of the camera access and the camera pooling rules, sometimes it causes problems. We had a case up in Churchill where I asked, I don't know what news outlet was up there, but I asked them how they would feel about pooling footage, and they specifically said, this is how we do it, and if you don't like it, too bad. So I just decided to not cover that case. So even though that is not the most common interaction that I have with the mainstream media, the fact that it's a potential issue, for the most part, steers me away from those types of cases. It's just easier for me to let them stay in their own lane, I stay in my own lane. Now, there are reporters within certain media organizations that are very friendly with me. We communicate as appropriate, as needed. It's not like we're all on the same side. It's kind of like everybody's kind of doing their own thing, and the interaction is minimal. And that's really all you're going to get when it comes to interacting with other media outlets. I wouldn't go so far as to say that they see me as a competitor so much as I think that that's just the culture. I think that's just how they function. Because of the camera pooling rules, I try to avoid the mainstream media. Some of the judges down here in Clark County will allow us to set up 2 cameras, which is probably the best thing because of just how different we are. So the mainstream media, they really are just looking for a few clips. They're going to do their report and they're going to run a few clips in the background. That's it. Whereas I'm looking for the beginning. Sorry, I'm looking for the footage from the beginning all the way to the end. And so it's the different style of how we record that causes issues with coordinating and cooperating. The judges, I would say that they would prefer I not be there. And I know they might not like me saying that, but in my opinion, it's not that they're opposing or against what I'm doing. I think it just makes them, it just makes it easier when they're not being recorded. I think it's just less stressful for them. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they're getting in my way. We do have a few judges, a small handful of judges who are hostile to the Our Nevada Judges mission, but the rest of them are either ambivalent towards us or they're very supportive. I think a lot of the opposition from the judges, when I do get opposition, is from the attorneys trying to sort of push the idea that we shouldn't be there. And it depends on the type of case. It depends on the case we're covering. So yes, certain types of cases, for example, family court is much more hostile towards camera access, towards media coverage than any other type of, non-family court. And then just because the other cases are not, sort of opposed as a whole, there still are on occasion specific attorneys who don't like Our Nevada Judges who frequently file objections. But this is typically what I see is it's either a specific type of case, family court, or it's a specific attorney. For example, Craig Mueller, Todd Matthew Phillips, these 2 attorneys do not like what I'm doing. They file objections all the time. So the resistance is kind of condensed behind these specific personalities. And then, of course, the family court, which is just a culture of, I don't know what I want, confidentiality, I guess we'd call it.
What about pushback from prosecutors on criminal cases? Any pushback from them?
Very little. There's been occasions where they've approached and asked very nicely to not be on camera. The only time I've ever gotten an objection is from Deputy District Attorney Amos Steggy up in Washoe County. That was the very beginning of the Roger Hilligas case. He's, for the most part, okay with us now, but that's the only prosecutor to actively oppose electronic coverage.
Can you tell the listeners, what is the actual law? Do you have a right to do this? What if a judge says, I don't want you in the courtroom? This is the First Amendment. You are technically a media organization. How do you handle that?
This is a very good question, because this is a very confusing issue for a lot of people. So under the First Amendment of the Constitution, we are allowed to be physically present in the courtroom. The First Amendment does not give us the right to put a camera in the courtroom. So I get the right to put cameras in the courtroom from a different source. Instead of the First Amendment of the Constitution of the United States, I have to use Supreme Court Rules 229 to 243. I believe it's from 229 to 243. And 229 has a bunch of definitions. Subsection 1C is the one that defines a news reporter. So you do have to be a news reporter. And then Rule 230 and Rule 230 sub 1 and 2 control how exactly you go about getting a camera in the courtroom. And there's a bunch of other ancillary rules, but those are the 2 big rules. I want to make this abundantly clear. If it was completely and totally up to the judge, we would most likely never be able to put a camera in the courtroom. And the reason I say that is because that's the rule right now in federal court. And it is so extraordinarily rare to get a camera into a federal courtroom that it provides us the perfect example of what happened when you make it purely up to the judge. So because of the Supreme Court of Nevada and because of Rule 230, there is a presumption that if you have a right to be physically in the courtroom, then you also have a right to put a camera in the courtroom. So basically, the Supreme Court of Nevada has attached the right to put a camera in the courtroom to the physical right of access to the courtroom, which is First Amendment. Now, there are a few exceptions that they have put into those rules, and boy, do attorneys go after those objections when they can, or those exceptions. because it's very different to sit in a courtroom and report versus to point a high definition camera at them while they're talking, arguing in court. It's very different. And so this rule does come up, and you've probably read about some of the lawsuits that we've had to file to force a judge to allow access. You probably read about the Supreme Court case with the ACLU and all this stuff. So yeah, I do like to tell the public that it is because of rules like the ones that I just talked about that we could do what we do, because I think the Supreme Court of Nevada deserves a lot of credit for putting that rule into effect. And I think that's the Supreme Court of Nevada's way of recognizing that judges are not going to make, I don't know if I want to use the word right decision. They just need to be forced. It's unfortunate, but they do. The rules basically allow us to force a camera, and I very strongly believe that if we could not do that, it would not happen.
I've seen recently you had the ACLU attorneys backing you on some court cases. You're free to talk on one or two of them, or you don't want to talk on those? Some of them are active. You know,
they're active cases, but they're not fact-intensive cases. So I don't mind going into them. I just try to avoid the technical details, because I feel like that is really, they should be, you know, approached with that. And they do have a communications director, and they do respond to inquiries. But I will say that it's in the Supreme Court. The cases are on the right to physical access to the courtroom, because that's what I was denied in family court. And then they're going well. I mean, we had the arguments. We published the arguments. If anybody wants to watch them, they're on the Our Nevada Judges channel. They were recorded on March 2nd, so you can look for the videos that we published on March 2nd. You should see it there. And we're, you know, looking forward to the outcome, or to the decision from the Supreme Court. I imagine it's going to probably take several months. If it takes 2 months, that would be considered fast for them. And I'm hoping that we have something within a month or two, but it could be 3, 4, 5, 6 months. It takes them a while up there sometimes.
What's the difference in doing your video presentations in a criminal case versus a family court case, a divorce case, a child custody case? What are the different parameters that you face between the criminal and the family court?
Well, our internal policy that we voluntarily comply with is to redact the family court proceedings. Not all of them, not everything, but certain things. So, for example, child's name, child's images, if they come up, which they rarely do, parents' names, parents' images, which do frequently come up. That type of information that we conceal and redact it. And that's really just to recognize the fact that what we're trying to educate and inform people with regards to family court is the sort of process, not necessarily the people. Whereas when it comes to criminal cases, we are trying to educate people on the process, but people are also interested in the people as well, the defendants specifically. So that's the difference.
You don't do this full time, right? You have a full-time job, and this is something
right.
to do. I know your wife has helped you. I've seen her in the courtroom, like I said, on the Tobiasen case back then. Do you have other people throughout Nevada that record for you, and you yourself have to travel throughout the state to these different courtrooms?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have Glenn Baker up in Winnemucca, that's District 6, and we have Christine Toasty up in Lyon County, which is District 3. They assist. We have a variety of camera operators in Washoe County, that's District 2, and the rest of it is, for the most part, Brittany and I, which is it's a lot, and we do have a full-time job. So it's very difficult to do this, but as long as it's effective and is making a difference, we'll continue to do it.
And you do this from your own, you spend your own resources and finance on this, right? You don't get any backing from any organization on this yet?
We don't get monetary backing. We get revenue from YouTube, which is nowhere near enough. And so we're operating at a loss. But we do get backing from other organizations that we very much appreciate. It's just not financial. So the American Civil Liberties Union for representing us. We have an attorney named Luke Busby that represents us for free most of the time. Actually, all of the time. And then we have the Legal Aid Center of Southern Nevada. Now they're not representing us, but they filed a brief in support of our mission, of our objective, which is very much appreciated. So we do get some support from very important organizations. It's just not financial.
The one thing I want to say, you said you got approval. You said you had approval from the Supreme Court of Nevada. So is that a blanket approval? Can a local judge say, I don't want you in my courtroom, even though the Supreme Court says you can be in there?
Well, of course. And what they do, they don't say we're going to violate the Supreme Court's rules on purpose. They cook up some excuse. They'll say, There's going to be attorney-client, confidential information when there really isn't. There's one where the bailiff said we could come into the courtroom when the proceedings started, and he never told us. They started it without us. We had 2 or 3 situations up north in Reno where the judge said that they needed to hear back from the lawyers before we could show up. And after 2 or 3 times, the judge figured out that the lawyers were on purpose ignoring her. So basically exploiting the ignorance of that particular interpretation of the rule. So, I mean, we had a judge who said he didn't know what we filed. That one was fun. We had a judge in Sparks. We filed a media request. He said he didn't know what it was. I mean, that's the type of stuff we see. We never see a judge that'll say, Mr. Falconi, the Supreme Court says we have to let you record, but screw them. We're going to violate the rule on purpose. They would never do that. They would get in so much trouble. So they'll just find some plausible explanation, some excuse, something like that. They'll cook something up, and then they'll say you can't come in for this bogus reason, which puts us into a position where we have to figure out how we can fight it. But I just want to make clear that this isn't usually what happens. We recorded 600 different hearings and trials. Most of the time we're okay. But when we do get some kind of opposition or some kind of resistance, it's a bogus response from a judge usually.
Wow. And then you do your own, the editing and the recording. Once you get home, you put all those pop-ups. Like when I first did the story, when I was writing for the Baltimore Post-Examiner, ladies and gentlemen, that's when I first found out about our Nevada judges. It was the Melanie Andrus Tobias, and then she passed away in January. But she was going before a hearing with the Nevada Commission on Judicial Discipline. And Alex's wife was in the hearing. It was a mock courtroom at the Boyd School of Law, the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. And she was there for 2 days recording it. But when you get home, when people would send me these emails, because they never saw anything like this before, and say, who's doing all these videos on the Tobias case? And not only that, and ladies and gentlemen, you have to go to his website, because I don't have the video to show you now. But you could see, like I said, when he gets home, he puts all these pop-ups. So if the attorney or the judge is bringing up a legal thing, or it goes right across the screen. So you see all the legal terms right there on the video. And that's what's amazing to people. It's like they've learned so much from watching your channel. Anyway, go ahead and respond on that.
Yeah, the editing, I mean, it's a lot of work. For every hour of footage, it's like 2 hours of editing. A lot of people don't know about that. So when you get an eight hour, full day of trial, people should realize it's an additional 16 hours of editing. It's a ton of work. But yeah, that's one of the things that makes us, stand out. And that's where we get a lot of our support from the judges. So I've talked about some bad eggs that don't want to let us record, but there's also some amazingly supportive judges within the system. And they've noticed the detail that goes into the videos, and they appreciate the additional educational value that the videos have because of those things that are edited into the videos. So yes, it's a lot of work, and that's what I have to do. But I'm the only one with the know-how to do that. And so that's just something that I can't get out of it. I have to do it.
No, it's an excellent website. The job you do, I tell you that all the time. It's just fantastic. And you had some cases of notoriety. You had the Kim Blandino case that everybody was following, not only in Vegas, but across the country. That was like a saga, and still goes on and on and on. And you were right there filming everything and getting it on the YouTube channel. In a couple hours, it's uploaded to YouTube. Do you, on technical, do you upload the channel on, you record on 4K or 1080p? What are you? Because you're crystal clear on your YouTube channel.
Yeah, mostly 1080p, but every now and then I'll do a 4K video. It depends on how long the video is going to be. It depends on whether we can get down there in person. So, I mean, it depends on a lot of factors for a 4K video to come out. But I've heard from people who work in the courthouse that the judges know. There was one person who specifically was approached by a judge, and the judge said to her, it was in 4K. So, yes, I mean, I realize that people like 4K. They like that a lot, including the judges and attorneys. But I can't always do 4K. So most of the time, you're going to see a 1080p video.
I've been doing all my podcasts. I've been doing 1080p. This is the first one, and I'll see what happens when I upload it to YouTube. It's probably going to take a little bit longer. This is the first podcast that I'm doing that's recorded right now in 4K on vMix. The software I use is vMix, so it's recording on 4K, and then we'll see what happens when it gets uploaded to YouTube. But I know when it hits YouTube, you can you got different settings. You can downgrade it to 1080p or 720. So that's on the settings of each YouTube video that's on the YouTube channel for all videos. But I'm going to see how this comes out, see how long it takes to upload it, because I don't have a fast internet speed here. I think I got 5 down and 60 megabytes per second, or download on 60 and upload on 5. But we'll see how it comes out, and the video is looking good now and everything. But people do have to go to your channel and watch those court. If you're interested in the legal side of things or cases, go to the Iowa Nevada Judges YouTube channel. Let me ask you a question on your logo I have up on the screen here. Are there other states that have our California judges, or is this something that you designed on yourself?
I designed it myself. There's another 15 state sites up, but I control all of those as well. But I don't do anything with them. I just don't have the time. So we have a total of 16 state sites that are up. Our Nevada Judges is the only active site.
Oh, wow. Is anybody else recording in those other states doing what you do?
No, it's not. This is not going to happen unless there's additional funding. Without additional funding, it's just an impossibility. Wow.
Very interesting, Alex. Like I said, it's the stuff you do to me is just it's absolutely fantastic and very. I've been in the law enforcement business. I'm retired now, but half of my life and half the life, and the other half of my life in the casino business. But you watch some of those hearings and stuff, and like I said, it's not only learning about. People want to learn about what goes on in a courtroom, criminal trial, or family court, but you learn about like I said, they say something. You put the legal term definitions in those pop-ups, and they're all over your YouTube, people. You got to watch it. It's phenomenal. And that's the first thing, like I said, I said before, when I did the one on Tobiasen, people were saying, wow, who is this, and how did he start? Those YouTube videos are fantastic. And then we learned so much because you actually put basically the legal definitions and stuff, what's going on during the trial. It's a lot of work, but you do a really good job. Really do a good job, Alice. It's a great service, and I wish other states, people who have the time to do it would get involved in this, because it's the public has a right to know what goes on, with their judges and prosecutors also in the courtroom, and it's a lot different than when you just read a news article and you don't have any video. They do a news article about what happened in the hearing, but with your site, you can actually watch some of these criminal trials and the other trials.
Yeah, no,
it's a really good site. When you're in the courtroom, you're not really causing a disturbance. Your cameras, at least when I saw at the hearing for Tobiasen, you're on a tripod, and basically you don't say nothing. You just move the camera around. You're not moving around the courtroom with a camera, right?
No, of course not. Yeah, that would be exactly why they would not let people with cameras in the courtroom. It's the disruption, distracting, stuff like that. Yeah, you set up in a place where you're not going to cause a distraction. You're going to minimize your presence, and you record silently, right?
Well, I've used some of your clips and some of my, when I was doing the Tobiasen stuff, and even some of my podcasts have some of the clips in there when she was on the stand at the hearing. Have you had requests from news organizations that I guess they would have to buy some of your footage that they want, that they weren't in the courtroom recording? Do you have any information like that?
We've only had one organization purchase footage. That was A&E's court cam, and that was the state of Nevada versus Michael McDonald, the courtroom fight. The media does ask permission to use my footage, and I always give them permission to use it. It's just, I'm not even sure that they need to ask. They probably just ask just so that they can avoid any possibility of being sued. And then there's also other YouTube channels that use the footage through the fair use exception, the copyright exception. So, I mean, definitely, I've seen the footage used in the news before, for sure. There was some unemployment footage that was used in the news back when the pandemic unemployment insurance stuff was going on. There was recent coverage in Texas. We were in their news because they needed to use the state of Nevada versus Nika Newcuban footage. So it happens. I mean, they do have our footage sometimes run on mainstream media.
Yeah, no, and I know I asked your permission, but to use some of the clips from YouTube a couple of years ago, and you gave me the permission, but just want to see if the news has ever asked. Well, I guess technically you're right. I mean, even my YouTube channel, they can download whatever they want and use it. It's the fair use.
Yeah, but they ask permission. They're very polite. I've been asked by Channel 8. I've been asked by Fox in Texas. I've been asked by, they ask, yeah. with a big company like that, they're just going to not want to take the risk. They would probably just rather not put the video up and just talk about the case. So they asked for permission, and I sent it to them in an email, and they use it. And I appreciate it because our logo's up there, and they mention our Nevada judges and stuff. So,
what parameters do you use to say I'm going to record this trial or not this one? Is there something that you how do you make that determination on what you're going to cover and what you're not going to cover?
Yeah, the public interest is only part of it. There's also, is this a case type that we've covered before? Is this a judge we've covered before? Is this a county we've been in before? So typically, educating and informing the public on the Nevada judiciary involves as many judges as I can cover as possible in as many regions of the state as possible. So those are two of my biggest criteria. And then, as I mentioned, public interest is one, but not the only thing I look at. And that's one of the things that confuses a lot of people. Sometimes there's a really, really high-end, like, for example, the Rob Tellis murder case, whatever you want to call it, the Jeff German murder case, for which Rob Tellis is accused of having murdered. A lot of people ask me to cover that one, but there's, already plenty of mainstream media covering it. There's other types of cases that are similar that I could cover. So really, I'm trying to not just follow the mainstream media around. I'm trying to not just cover tabloid types of cases. I'm trying to balance it all out. The cases that involve child victims like that I'm very hesitant, because right at the last minute you might hear of an objection. And of course, that's an objection you'd want to respect. So it definitely throws a factor into potential electronic coverage when you have a child victim in that kind of situation. That's the first thing that jumps out at me. So yeah, that's just something that's on the back of my mind as to why there might be issues getting cameras in there.
Yeah, well, we'll see what happens. And again, like, it could take a last minute, take a plea deal, but we'll see what happens with that case. Anything else you want to say to the listeners, Alex? I mean, I think we got your YouTube channel, Our Nevada Judges, and you got your webpage, but I do tell people, if you've never seen that YouTube channel, go to Our Nevada Judges, and you're going to be amazed at the coverage. And like I said, it's just not coverage. There's all kinds of pop-ups coming in, so you learn a lot by watching his channel. Go ahead. I'll give you the last word here, Alex.
I just appreciate coming on your show. I love your channel. Keep doing what you're doing, and thanks for having me on. No problem. And of course, you had me on your show about, I think, 2 years ago, and was on there. Right. But appreciate it. Keep up the good work. And maybe we'll do this again. And remember, Our Nevada Judges, ladies and gentlemen, YouTube channel, and you'll see all the videos on there. Appreciate it, Alex, and we'll do this again. All right. Thank you. Okay, now. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that was Alex Falconi, administrator for Our Nevada Judges. And there's, I think I got a little thing here from his YouTube channel. Get it up on the screen here. That's his logo. Not that one. 10 here. This is, and I'll zoom up here. That's from his YouTube channel. Those are cartoon characters of, I believe, the Supreme Court justices here in Nevada. So go to Our Nevada Judges YouTube channel, and you could see all the videos that are on there, because he does a phenomenal job. And basically, like I said, it's him and his wife that do this. So that's it for this episode, ladies and gentlemen. I have more coming up on the Kevin McMahill, Sheriff McMahill saga related to the 1995 Carrie Lance incident. I have more stuff coming on that. I have some other guests that want to come on the podcast and talk about different things and stuff about criminal cases. And there's a former FBI agent I'm going to have on in the future. And he was involved in uncovering some corruption up in Connecticut as a state attorney's office inspector. So that's all the stuff that we got going. So I appreciate it. Remember to subscribe to the YouTube channel of the DOUG POPPA podcast. I know at the beginning I started saying Truth and Consequences. That was the old title, Truth and Consequences with DOUG POPPA. It's changed now to the DOUG POPPA podcast. That's my YouTube channel. All the videos from day one, this is the 138th episode, are on the YouTube channel of the DOUG POPPA podcast. If you want to support my work, because I'm on retirement,
I'm on Social Security, and everything I do for this comes out of my own pocket. It's PayPal. It's I think it's Doug Poppa, and I'll have it on the thing, /paypal.me/Doug Poppa. Contact, if you want, Doug Poppa podcast at gmail.com. So you can reach me through that email, and we'll see you on the next episode. And you know, a lot of stuff coming out. Like I said all the time, I get a lot of emails from people saying we cannot figure out why these stories that you break are not covered by the Las Vegas media. I don't have any answers for that. I don't work for the Las Vegas media, but I have sources within the police department who give me information, and that's why I've been breaking a lot of stories for the past couple of years on the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, and even before that, when I was writing for the Baltimore Post-Examiner. I wrote for the Baltimore Post-Examiner from Las Vegas for almost 5 years, and I did, I think there's over 350 articles. 160 of them are on the Las Vegas Massacre, more than any other journalist in the country. I wrote that many stories, and the other ones were on criminal cases and the Las Vegas unsolved 2016 double homicide of Sidney Land and Nehemiah Kaufman. I have a lot more coming out on that, stuff that I never reported on, some other new information that I got. And that case is over 6 years unsolved. And as you all know, Sidney Land's one of the victims in that double homicide. Her boyfriend also was killed with her, Nehemiah Kaufman. Her mom, Connie Land, unfortunately committed suicide last year in August of 2022. But and I worked with Connie Land for years, since January of 2019. She was relentless in trying to get answers as to who was involved in the death of our daughter and Nehemiah Kaufman. So I have a lot more stuff coming out on that. There's also a lot of police incompetence and negligence and just horrendous stuff that I've never seen before involving especially not only a homicide investigation, but a double homicide. And like I said, it's still unsolved, and it's a freaking disgrace what went on in that case. So I'll be exposing a lot more stuff that I haven't talked about. Like I said, the case is 6.5 years unsolved. This October will be 7 years. So I appreciate you listening, and just keep watching. Remember, subscribe. Hit the red subscribe button on the YouTube, and then hit the bell, and then you get notifications when I do a new podcast. Again, thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.
This lawman sacrificed his badge for justice.
Poppa knew a secret that could free a man wrongfully imprisoned for shooting his ex-wife. But when Poppa stepped forward, he was cut down by his own police department.
All this stuff's going in my head. Should I call up to the defense attorney? Okay? And I knew if I did that, you know, holy hell would break loose.
Deputy Sheriff Doug Poppa used to be one of the top cops in rural Loudoun County, Virginia. Deputy Poppa feels he's been busted himself. He lost his job as a narcotics investigator, he says, when he told an ugly truth about a 4-year-old crime. The truth about how his own department and the local prosecutor allegedly ignored key evidence and may have sent an innocent man to jail.
I testified, and everything changes.
What Deputy Poppa testified about was an attempted murder in 1987.
They deliberately withheld evidence that should have been given to my defense attorneys.
Bill Birch is the prosecutor Deputy Poppa accused of ignoring the evidence.
He says, I told the prosecutor, I told Mr. Birch that this woman said, I'm going to shoot myself if need be, and I'm going to make it look like my husband did it just to ruin his life. Did he say that to you?
No, he did not.
But this November, the court believed Doug Poppa.
Oh my goodness, is this the reception committee?
And on Valentine's Day, William Carter was released on a $50,000 bond and given a new trial.
This man usually puts people on trial in this courthouse, but in a rare turn of events, the Loudoun County Commonwealth Attorney was called to the witness stand. William Birch was asked to respond to allegations that he pressured a witness to lie in earlier court proceedings.
No, sir.
A woman who lived at the Carter mansion the night Carol Vandergrift Carter was shot 5 years ago testified that the prosecutor coached her to withhold testimony about the gun involved.
I certainly did tell him about that it was a .38.
I don't recall her
saying anything about the gun, the .38 caliber, anything like that.
He's lying to cover his tracks on the last trial.
The high price one cop is paying for telling the truth.
After serving more than 4 years behind bars, Carter was on the edge of his seat when the verdict was read today.
We, the jury, on Peach's joint, find the defendant William Douglas Carter not guilty.
After he audibly thanked the jury, Douglas Carter could not contain himself. The tears flowed.
I came out and testified in November of 1991 at the habeas corpus hearing, and again in January. I was suspended for 10 days without pay, and I ended up being fired after 12 years in this department.